Thanks, Sarah. Hey, good morning. Is it? Yeah, it must be good morning. My name's Tim Woodman from Management Learning Coaching, and I have my colleague Dinah, who's going to be answering any questions that you might have as we go along. Today is all about answering three questions that I posed when presenting this to you guys. So why should we be in contact now was the first question that I asked. What should we be saying and how should we be doing it? So we're going to break the presentation down into those three things. So why should we be in contact with our key accounts is the starting point. So right now, of course, the world has changed immeasurably from even 2 or 3 months ago. And why should you be in contact is a big question. Now, we have some experience, both Diane and I and our colleagues in the business have been already talking to our key clients and our clients with the express view of showing them that we care. So the starting point with any relationship in a key account is that actually there's care on both sides. It's a partnership arrangement, surely. That's why it's a key account. So actually them showing that they care for you and vice versa is really, really important. And the way that we can display that care is by talking to them and finding out where they are. And of course, there's an ulterior motive here, is that when we come out of these difficulties, which we undoubtedly will, then actually holding on to the account and helping them perhaps to prosper when maybe they might not be able to, is also part of the situation. Our experiences in conversing with our clients has been totally mixed. On the one hand, we've had the responses, don't talk to us, we can't even cope with what's going on right now, right the way to the other end of it, which was actually your ideas really sparked something in me, and we've had phone calls back from people and lovely emails saying that's been really good of you to reach out to us. So staying in contact with people is really, really important. Now, how we do that, I will talk with you and I'll share some ideas with you just now. Some lovely research, which I'm sure you'll find illuminating. But let's think about, first of all, let's just check some basics with you. What is a key account? Why do we call it a key account in the first place? And what makes a key account is often answered by the people that we work with when we're training them. The first answer is, well, the amount of revenue that they bring in. But actually, it should be a deeper analysis than just the revenue. On your screen now, you'll see both technical factors and personal factors. We often forget the personal factors. Technically, certainly revenue, the amount of money that they spend with us is important. So when assessing whether the account is a key one or not, which should then determine the action that you should then take to deal with the account, should be determined by these factors, perhaps more than just the amount of revenue that it brings in. If I may, I'll promote our one-day key account management program. We go into this in some kind of detail. That's the end of the sales pitch, by the way. We do this. We ask people to come in with their own accounts, and you get a chance to work on them, look at them. And what we find is that where revenue is often the thing that's used as the determining factor, it's often other things that then start to shuffle around the ranking of the various different accounts that you may or may not have. Because of course you can use this for prospects. It's not just exactly with key accounts. So thinking about it from this perspective is that we then, so what's the purpose of having a key account? Well, of course, the purpose of identifying them as an account means that you want to try and grow that account. How do you grow the account? Well, you do it by creating opportunity that perhaps the other party, the client themselves, don't see that they have in the first place. So starting out with any key account, you should be setting yourself a goal. What am I trying to do with this account? Then what's the plan, the strategy that's going to get me there? What's the tactics that I might then need to adopt or use? In today's climate, of course, that's been shrunk into a very small time frame. People's circumstances have completely changed, and therefore finding out what's changed for them is really, really different. And one of the things that's important about deciding whether it's a key account or just an ordinary account is actually the amount of time that you put to one side to actually do the thinking and putting in place the goals, the planning itself, and then making that happen, as opposed to ordinary accounts where potentially you won't take that time or trouble to do those sorts of things. If it's a key account, it's worth putting that time and effort into it. Now, what time, what effort should be putting into it? So let's just check what that might look like. You'll see that I've got a picture of a window here. What that represents is that as the person who has contact with the client, i.e. somebody who sits in one of the buildings opposite, that they can only see into our company through the window. So they might not know our capacity or capability for the things that we do. Vice versa, we may not know what they are capable of doing and what the capacity of they have for doing the things that they do. So the key to all of this is finding out what they do so that you can show them the things that they might be able to do that might help them with their circumstances. So when I think about a key account, I'm thinking that I'm the window that helps them see into my business, that will help them to appreciate what we can do, that will help them to do whatever they're doing better, with making more money faster, maybe meeting some legal constraints, etc., etc. Depends on the business that you do. So having decided that I've got a goal, I've got a plan, and I've got some time that I need to put to one side, what is it that I'm going to do with that time? That then becomes the next question. So let's just think about it like this. The organization that you deal with is like the jigsaw that you can see in the middle of my screen. So each part of the jigsaw puzzle is a piece of information that makes up the other party. So when I'm looking at this through my window and I'm looking at that building, I want to know, how does the business that I'm dealing with operate? Because if I can understand that, I'm then likely to be able to start to see the opportunities that maybe they can't see that I might be able to solve for them. Okay. However, what we find when we're doing our training is that most salespeople or most people who have contacts with clients only see maybe one or two of the pieces of the puzzle. They don't get to understand. So for instance, in our marketplace, which is human resources, we get to talk to a lot the human resource folk, but we don't get to understand what is the business making, whether it be a light bulb or whether it be a machine that manufactures the undercarriages of cars, or whether it's a lawyer outlet or a service, or whether it's an accountancy firm. We can guess, but we don't really know. So part of the key account process is to gather the information that's out there. Now, thinking about this in terms of where we are right now, of course, the internet has facilitated the opportunity to actually find that information without actually talking to people. So what you can be doing right now is, what do I really need to know about this person's business, such that I can start to spot the opportunities that whatever we do might then be able to be brought to bear on their behalf to make things better for them. So let me use an example. Cambridge Network, the reason why we are doing this, this webinar right now is because about 3 weeks ago, we said we're capable of doing a webinar, something they weren't aware of. So by understanding their situation and by talking to them, we realized there was an opportunity for us to not only promote ourselves, but also to help their clients, which of course is what this is all about. So if you take Porter's value chain, which this is a representation of, this graphic that you're looking at right now, you'll see that we've got raw materials or people that are the inputs into an organization. The organization then does something with it by using the various different pieces of the jigsaw, the different departments, the different people, different machineries, different things that they might then do to the raw materials or the service. And then they have products and services that come out that have additional value added to them, which your clients are prepared to pay for. Because of course, what are they using them for? Well, they're using them to solve their own problems. So this is the starting point. You can start to think about, what don't I know about my clients? And frankly, that's normally quite a lot when we talk to our people on our key account management programs. They rarely know more than a very small part of the organization. Once they start to dig a little bit, once they start to understand what's going on, then they start to see opportunities that they wouldn't have seen otherwise. What tends to happen in those cases is that they become very transactional. They wait for the client to approach them rather than the other way around. A key account is something where you're going to them with ideas and thoughts that will help them do their work better. And in this current climate, that is hugely valuable. Let's have a look at the next stage of this, because of course, companies don't actually operate in a climate that's just theirs. They actually operate in a business environment. So there's a whole bunch more information that's out there that you can go and look for. So for instance, what's the marketplace that the actual client is actually operating in? Where's their business? What might they be selling? What things could they sell perhaps? What's their customer base look like? What's the commercial offering that these guys actually are putting out there? What's the strategic position that they may be holding? A great place to go and find that out is go and have a look at their accounts. There is generally a director's report in there that will tell you an awful lot, and reading between the lines, you'll find out things that you otherwise wouldn't know. What's the competition that these guys face? In the marketplace? Is there just them, or is a whole bunch of people? In our particular case, providing training, for instance, there's over 12,000 companies out there. How do we make ourselves different? Then becomes a huge challenge for us. So when you think about business environment, you might use the PEST acronym that some of you may have heard of, which is political, environmental, social, and technological, to also overlay that on the client and think about what's the drivers, what are the things that making this business work, and then what's the service or products that we might be able to provide that will provide you with an opportunity to go and talk to them. Just as an example, again, we spoke to Cambridge Network a couple of weeks back and said, we're capable of doing this. These are the sorts of things that we could do. And we put in front of them a whole bunch of ideas, including the one that we're now presenting. So without that initiative, Cambridge Network wouldn't have known our capability, and we wouldn't be talking to you right now. So think about that. That's what key account is all about, creating opportunity. It's not about sitting back and waiting for your client to come to you. To be able to do that, you've got to have the information to be able to make those judgments. Now, of course, some of that information you might not be able to gather through working through the internet. Some of it you're going to have to do by talking to people. Now, it may not be appropriate right now because of people's difficulties that you actually go and ask those questions. But it's certainly something that you might think about. The third phase of this, of course, is wholly appropriate with the current situation. And this is by some work which we found a couple of weeks back by Rav Dhaliwal, and it's called Taking Care of Business. And he talks about risk rating the organizations that you're dealing with. And you think about this in terms of industry, geography, and the cash that they might have in the bank. Those are the three key criteria that will help you to judge where are they as an organization. I'll take you through a little bit more where people might be in a second. But think about this. If you're approaching a healthcare provider or a medical supplies company, where are they right now? Well, frankly, they're probably flat out right now. They're probably thinking, how do I actually make these products so that I can satisfy demand? On the other hand, you might be a restaurant or own a restaurant chain. One of our key clients is a corporate catering company. They employ over 20,000 people around the country. All 20,000 are on furlough right now. We can't even talk to them. So that provides us with a totally different scenario to work with. So thinking about the industry that they're in will give you some feel as to where they might be in terms of their position right now. Geography also. Some of you work for global organizations. We were having a conversation yesterday about how some organizations are global and each part of their global organization are in different phases of lockdown because of the virus. Therefore, what situation does that create for the global organization? Maybe in one part of the world, you've got a product or service that will help. In other parts of the world, it's not going to help. No point in talking about that with regards to that. And lastly, cash flow. I'm sure everybody's been through the same process. As managing director of management learning and coaching, that's exactly where we went with my directors, is how much cash have we got? How long can we survive? Right, okay, that's given us some confidence to then reshape and relook at what we do and to start to think about how do we make contact with and start talking to our clients about the things that we could do that will help them with what they are trying to achieve. So I hope that gives you a flavor for key accounts per se. It's a key account because you're trying to create work that satisfies the goals that you're trying to achieve. In this current climate, the internet will give you a short, insightful view of where they may be directly. So use it, but think about the jigsaw puzzle and think about the environment that they're operating in will give you some kind of overview as to perhaps some of the difficulties they may face. Okay. So let's have a look at the next question that I posed, which is, what should we be saying? Well, I'd like to share with you a couple of things first up that will help you to perhaps position where you are with respect to them. Now, what that looks like is when we challenge salespeople as to what do you go, when you're having conversations with your clients, what are you going through? And they'll tell you, I'm looking to target who I want to talk to. I want to qualify what they're about. Once I've qualified them, I want to identify their needs, provide some solutions, and then present the benefits of what we do, and then close them down by asking for the order. Excuse me, got a little bit of... However, you ask the buyer, what cycle do they go through? It's completely different. So the challenge for the salesperson is to find out where the buyer is in their cycle and then match their process, their cycle to the buyer's cycle. The key point about all of this is getting yourself and putting yourself in the shoes of the buyer. What's the buyer seeing? What are the challenges on their desk right now? And of course, what they were thinking about a month ago is completely different to what they're thinking about right now. So trying to envisage where they might be. What are the problems that they face right now? Maybe the way that we would have looked at it 4 weeks ago. But actually, because of the time frame of this pandemic and what it's actually done to the marketplace, we've shifted from problem solving to dealing with symptoms. So that chunks it down into much smaller sized pieces. And what I mean by that is typically when we're looking to try and provide, and as an example of our industry, is provide a solution to somebody, it's often, well, what's the real problem that you're facing? Because if we just deal with the symptoms right now, maybe the problem doesn't go away. Right now, people are looking for just dealing with the symptoms because the underlying problem might still be there in a few months. But so what? If I can deal with the symptoms right now, I've got a decent chance still to be around in 6 to 7 months or however long it's going to take us to get out of this, so that I can then deal with the full problem. So a lot of our thinking is along the lines of, actually, it's a stage further than this. Where's the buyer? Well, actually, they're thinking about, what's the symptom? I'm going to ignore the problem. Then what can I do to solve this problem? And how can I do this really quickly? But I'm not thinking about this in terms of the sales cycle and trying to get myself through this. I'm thinking about this in terms of the buying cycle and how they might be thinking. So let's just think about how the buyer might be looking at this. And here's a chart that we use occasionally. Two sides to this to the equation here. One is, what's the strategic value of you as a supplier to the buyer? And if we've got a high strategic value to them, then maybe they might be thinking a competition mentality or relationship or partnership mentality with regards to how difficult it might be to replace us. Now, some of our clients are people who are relatively unique in the marketplace. They do research and development. They're almost a one-off in the whole world, let alone in this country. So in those particular cases, their competition, that when they're selling to people, most of the time they're in the relationship or partnership, or the buyer are looking at managing the risk. Now, where do we want to be in this relationship? So if I go back a slide, you will see that they will be thinking about, what's my problem, what's my need? What we should be doing is trying to position ourselves as somebody who's solving problems. Now that follows through on the theme that I've already proposed to you, which is we should be thinking about this in terms of finding the opportunities to solve their problems, which they may not even know that there's a solution out there, and putting that in front of them. But if they see us as problem solvers, rather than people who are brought in to solve a budget or a shortlist issue, which is transactional, we want to shift ourselves up the scale, to solving problems or dealing with symptoms. Then that puts us at the situation where we're seen as relationship and partnership material. I hope that makes sense to you. So we're trying to shift ourselves from being transactional. So look at things at the moment. So you've got a key account. Are you being asked for things, or are you going to them with ideas and thoughts? If you're being asked for things and all you're doing is reacting rather than being proactive, you need to start to think about, how do I shift this relationship from being a transactional one into a partnership-based one? Okay, hope that makes sense. All right, here's where we get you guys to do something. Look at that, we're nearly 27 minutes into this. Okay, what I'd like you to do is, on the chat, is I'd like you to rank the 3 things we've got now. Why do people buy from organizations? Do they buy because of the product? Do they buy because of the company? Or do they buy because of the people? Would you do me the service of just, which one is number 1 in the top of your ranking there? So just write product, company, or people on the chat, and my lovely colleague Diana will then collate those. So which one of these 3 do you think is the most important for your business? The product, your buyers, will they see the product as most important, the company as most important, or the people that they deal with? So it looks like we've got 17, 18, 20 odd now responses already. That's really good. I'm going to ask Diana to join me in a sec just to collate what she thinks she's seen there.
The vast majority are saying based on the people. One or two are saying it depends on the context, depends on what they're buying. If it's a commodity, then it probably doesn't matter quite so much. But
yeah,
certainly the first 20 or so answers that came through
saying it's people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Here's what the research shows. Thanks for that, guys. The research shows that that what matters to buyers roughly is product 25%, reputation, size of the business 25%, and a massive 50% is down to the people. So thinking about that, how can we start to communicate with our clients, with our key clients specifically, on the things that they're interested in that will help them to judge what you do and then become a partner relationship with them. The next slide shows you where the phases of buyer's concern are as you move through the different phases that a client goes through when purchasing something. Now, if we break this back down into thinking about, okay, so where are we right now? Well, right now, we should be thinking about symptoms rather than problem. So what do they need to solve the symptoms that they face right now? Is where we should be thinking about. Their level of concern is dealing with the moment now, not thinking about longer term strategic things. But you'll see here that as we move through time, the buyer, their concerns change. What's happening in the world right now is this whole thing is being shortened up because people are looking to find solutions to situations that they face right now. So that whole time frame is needs to be managed in double quick time. So taking the impact of this slide and understanding what it's all about is actually just appreciating where the buyer might be and choosing the words and language that you might use, but also where your focus is that will help them to appreciate that actually you're connecting with them and appreciating and understanding their concerns in the moment. Okay, I hope that makes some sense to you. I find that a really good slide, and certainly with a little bit more time up your sleeve than actually analyzing your key clients. I don't do this for everybody, but certainly for my key clients, I use this, especially when there's a valuable sale at the end of it, is I start to think about where are they, what do they want to hear from me in the moment. So if we perhaps think about this in currently, we've already talked about the symptoms, but let's say we've dealt with the symptoms. Here's a solution to those symptoms. Think about it then, evaluating those, the alternatives is all about, here's the solution, this is what it will do. And then taking action, it's all about what's the risk to me, what's the risk to the business, what's the risk to the other people in my organization if this works or doesn't work, as the case may be. So we need to think about that and use the language that we choose and change the language that we choose to make that work. As you will see, you'll also see price changes to cost. And of course, if we're in relationship as a partnership relationship, we should be looking to make that value rather than cost. What's the value to you as an organization? Which I'll talk about a little piece. This next slide is really useful. This is some research that was done a couple of years back, and they were looking at what do people use, what behaviors do people use when they're talking to clients or prospective clients. And you'll see here that on the right-hand side, you've got face-to-face. That's what F2F stands for. Apparently, somebody asked that question a couple of days ago. What does F2F stand for? It's face-to-face, which is the blue column. We've got telephone, in other words, when you're talking to them on the telephone. And of course, then in the green column, we've got what the really good salespeople do. Now, this can be broken down into two separate sides of the equation. The first side is behaviors, is seeking facts, getting information. And the second part of it is sharing information. And what strikes me about this particular set of research is that if we look at the telephone, our instinct is to give information. So we spend a little bit of time chatting with people. So tell me where you are right now. Oh, right. Okay. I've got some solution to this. Bish, bash, bosh. And that's what tends to happen. Our natural instincts are to give information on the phone. It's because of the psychological issue of trust, because I can't see you. I can't tell whether you trust me, and vice versa. So that's the difficulty we face with the telephone. Again, that's something by the choice of our language, we can start to build a deeper trust situation with that. From a face-to-face perspective, we're a little bit better at getting facts. However, we tend to go over the top. We tend to go too far in seeking the facts. And then what we revert to is giving information, rather than you'll see some of the other criteria where the really good guys operate is seeking problems, seeking the buying criteria. In other words, if I'm in competition with somebody, how are you going to judge me against those other people? Do you know what the buying criteria is? And it might be different for different people. Testing understanding. So you told me this. Exactly how does that work? I think it's this, this, and this. Am I right? So we do a lot more testing of understanding, because what that does is that creates trust in the other party, that you're listening in the first place and also understanding what it is that they're telling you. So when you go back to the buying cycle, when they're going through a purchase, building trust is all about testing understanding. So going back to them with those words. And then, of course, when we get into the phase where we need to share information with people, you'll see that we talk about features, advantages, and benefits, FAB, which is sharing features, whereas the good guys are pretty good at sharing the features, but they also talk about the advantages of using those features, whereas telephone sales and face-to-face people rarely talk about the advantages. And there's often quite a disconnect between, well, what's the difference between an advantage and a benefit? Well, the advantage is something that you use to show how the feature is used. So the feature is the characteristic of the product. The advantage is how it's used. And then the benefit is how the client will actually use that. So for instance, if I use the training example, the characteristic of the product or service might be me standing up with a whole bunch of information, and I share that information. So how will that feature be used? Well, it will share information with the other party, so they gain knowledge. And then the client specific is, what will they do with that information back at work that then makes a difference to their business? That's how they then use the knowledge. Okay, does that make sense? I hope so. Let's go back to this chart, because I find this fascinating. But very few people, when talking to clients, mention what's the advantage of using the product to the particular individual. What that means is we need to find out how they're going to use it. This chart for me raises all sorts of questions about the sorts of questions that you should be asking. I hope that makes some sense. Okay, let's move on. So we've already had a look at this. So think about how you change your language to start to make sure that you understand how they're going to use it and how it's going to make a difference to their business. That makes a difference in starting to connect and understanding and building a partnership relationship. Here's the next slide I'd like to show you, or the last one with regards to this. I'm sure some of you have seen this before. This is people buy for different reasons. Some cases security, some cases performance, appearance, convenience, economy, durability. However, why we might have bought something 4 weeks ago will have changed hugely right now. So why you might have bought something 4 weeks ago because of the security it might offer you might have changed radically right now. It might be purely economic right now. I've got to save money, etc., etc. So look at this sheet and think to yourself, Now, how will the benefit that we offer change because of the circumstances we're in, and then offer that as knowledge that you've thought about, that you're starting to connect with where they might be. Okay, so just some questions that you might be asking yourself with regards to the questions that you might be asking your clients when you get in contact with them. So, excuse me. I hope that makes sense to you all. Let's now look at the last question, and I'm going to keep this relatively short and simple. But what we're attempting to do here when we're doing this is actually building trust with people. So being open with them, gaining their acceptance, being reliable, being consistent is all part of the process here. Some of you are looking at me right now, and you're looking at a screen on your computer. It may be a thumbnail in size. Some of you may start to use video linking to connect with your clients. So when you do, you need to think about some things. So how you actually make the contact with people and then talk with them. Just a couple of tips here on how you can manage the impact, those impressions that you make with other people. You, of course, will see in the backdrop here that what we've done with Zoom, although you can do this with quite a lot of other webinar-based or video link technology, is you can have your own backdrop. If you could actually see what's behind me, you'd probably go, where is he? I'm actually in my conservatory, so I'm actually working at home, just like you guys. But make it look, you can make it really professional really quickly. It's a quick tick on the box in the Zoom, if you're using Zoom, or you'll find there the video backdrop. You can find something that will make it look good by just downloading your backdrop into that. The second thing you need to contemplate is very often, and what I see with a lot of people, and if I look around some of the people that were already that are on this call, I can see some of you where you're looking down at the camera. So probably you've got this on your phone. That is a poor place to be if you're talking to a client, because it feels like you're looking down on them. So the thing that you need to be managing is that my eyeballs are almost in line with the camera. Yes, my chin is consciously tilted downwards a fraction, so that gives me a little bit of gravitas in the way that I'm actually talking to you. The second thing that you need to think about is that, although I haven't shown it too much here, if you're one-on-one, just turn your shoulders slightly and look slightly sideways. The psychology behind that is that I'm trying to face the same direction as the person who I'm looking to talk to. And part of that is a trust issue. Psychologically, it's been shown that if you're sitting with somebody and you're both facing the same direction, then actually you don't have to keep checking somebody's facial behavior to see if they're telling the truth or not. That's fairly deep, but this comes from interview techniques and so on and so forth. So if you can just turn your shoulders slightly, it just provides a slightly different way that people think, yes, this person psychologically trusts me. The third issue is that, I don't know if you've seen this with some web classes, but some people, they end up, you can see that they're looking, but then they end up looking away. Something distracts them, etc., etc. So clear away the distractions. But what you can't see is right behind my laptop is a desktop computer screen with all my prompts. So what I can see by looking at the camera is, how do I do this using technology at your disposal? First impressions, sellers versus consultants. So that's what I can see, but I'm reading that and you can't see that my eyes have gone somewhere else. Okay. So this is all about making an impression with the individuals that you're working with. So So finally, I'd just like to pick up on a couple of do's and don'ts that will help you. Do make sure that you're in a comfortable place. Do make sure that if this is a really important call, that you fire up your motivation. What you won't know is that I was running on the spot about 5 minutes before we went into this. It's a challenge. It's the first time I've done this with Cambridge Network. I was nervous, normal. Getting rid of some of those nerves, jumping up and down in my conservatory and getting a smile on my face. Actually, if you smile a little bit bigger, it transmits itself across the airwaves. So I was conscious right at the beginning to smile a lot right at the beginning. Once I'm into it, forget it. But I've created that impression by a big smile. If you're trying to make contact with people and they come back to you and start arguing with you, be polite. Don't argue with people. People are under a huge amount of stress and strain right now. Take the time out and say, it's not a good time right now. Let me call you back when it's a bit more pleasant or a bit easier for us to have a conversation. Be patient, but don't pester. I've got people who are emailing me who I'm just going, I want to talk to them. I don't have the time. They haven't put in front of me a good case why I should talk to them. I have talked to 2 or 3 people because they've gone, I think this is a good idea. What do you think? Could you use that? Put it in front of people, phone them, email, find a way, LinkedIn. We text people. If you've got their mobile phone, just text them. Look, it'd be great to talk to you. I've got this great idea that I think might help your business. Give me a shout if you're interested. Make it personal to them. So think about this yourself. What do you respond to, don't respond to, and think about it from the buyer's perspective. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been 45 minutes on the nose. I hope you've enjoyed listening to what we've got to say. If you've got any questions for us right now, we would love to be able to field them, so please type away. So if you've got any questions, we'll stay around for however long it takes to answer those questions. If not, I'd love to have your applause. Not that I can hear you, but I can maybe see you. I hope that's been useful. If you find that, or if this has been stimulating and you'd like actually to talk to us a little bit more about maybe some of the other things that we can do, or specifically about the Key Client program, we'd love to make contact. Here's my email address. Ping me an email, and we'd love to have the conversation with you. So if you've got any questions, then please type away, and then Diana, I guess you'll pick it up and come up with some answers with some of the questions.
I'd just like to also jump in and say thank you to you, Tim. That was really, really helpful. Loads of great tips and slides there. So we'll be looking forward to sending those out. I don't think there's any questions coming in, and we'll give you a few more minutes in case you're typing. Lots of thank yous coming in.
Too. The rest I might have to just go back. Everybody's saying thank you too quickly. It's disappearing.
Also, folks, if you've got any feedback for us, that would be brilliant as well. We're obviously learning, although we've been doing webinars long enough. Maybe 6 years now, 7 years, maybe we've been doing webinars. We're always learning. So if you've got any feedback for us, we'd love it. Brick bats and all, feedback's food of champions, as they say, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, we've just had one question come in from Deborah.
Yeah, hi Deborah. What's the question, Sarah?
Any tips to remember all the information sometimes that people reel off? Sometimes during conversation, so much information is given when face-to-face, it's hard to remember all the golden nuggets. Writing as people talk feels rude. To be honest, these days, I just say to people, I'm not going to remember stuff and almost make it a virtue. You know, I want to do justice to what you're saying to me. Would it be okay if I write notes?
The second thing that I might add to that, Diana, which is a really good answer, is if you've come across mind mapping before, if not, Tony Bazan wrote a book called Mind Mapping, which you'll find I found it in W.H. Smith's of all places. That allows you to take notes really quickly. It uses pictures and keywords rather than how we tend to write, which is, you know, in that format. You jot down just the keywords, and then you add to the keywords some of the other things that you might want to remember. One of the things that we do when we're doing a presentation like this is we start out with a mind map. And that starts with the key thing in the middle, so key account management, and then for 5 minutes I'll just brainstorm. So what do I think I should be talking about? So relationship, buyer perspective, etc., etc. And then off each of those words will provide me with creativity to think, okay, what else could I talk about? Okay, let's just look at the buying, looking on the other side of the desk on the buyer. What should I be thinking about there? So 2 or 3 ideas will come off that. So very quickly you can put together, you know, a whole a whole day's worth of training on a sheet of A4 paper with the notes. So and actually I use pictures a lot as well, because your eyes pick up pictures really quickly. And it's a place where you can go back. And when I'm note taking, I also do the same thing. So when somebody mentions something to me, oh, that's really interesting, but I'll have a picture inside my mind and I'll scribble the picture on there. And that will bring back an awful lot of information that otherwise I would forget. So you might find note taking and mind mapping is also a really good way of being able to take notes really quickly. And that will also spark your subconscious as to some of the things that perhaps were talked about at the time. Dan, have we got anything else?
I'm just answering a couple of people. 1 or 2 people have asked for a bit more detail on one or two of the slides, which I think we get a copy of the chat, don't we? So
yeah,
what I've promised is you'll write a paragraph on it and send it out with the
okay.
Recording.
Good. Ladies and gentlemen, if we've got nothing further, then thank you very much. My name's Tim Woodman. Please, we'd love to have communications with you. Feel free to email me with your feedback. If there's anything you'd like to talk about further, we're real happy to do that.
Great. Thank you, Tim.
Stay safe,
and
everybody.
Thank you, Diana.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye.